Hey folks, this is Soul with some more War Within coverage. We're going to be talking about professions again, and I want to take on a very specific critique that I saw a lot when looking at feedback over over my time in Dragonflight. I'm sort of paraphrasing, but it sums up to this. What if I just want to make cool items for myself? Like, never mind playing the auction house and trying to make gold, I just want to level my profession solo like we did once upon a time, and then make things that, make things that I want to make. With a premise like that, Dragonflight was kind of a tough nut to crack. In a few cases, in order to make a certain piece of gear, and to make it well especially, one needed to spec into like multiple trees and have a high enough skill level. And both depended on crafting orders and other people. But, what about us? What about the people who didn't have to care about stuff like that before? It made Dragonflight feel really bad. Now, the War Within, it's not a full reversal of the Dragonflight systems, but it is an iteration based on lessons learned with a few key bullet points. The biggest is the switch from inspiration to concentration, or you can say it's a switch from RNG to time gating of sorts. For the career-minded crafter who wants to make a lot of stuff and sell consistently, it's a big change-up. But for players who are part of this topic, who are just crafting for themselves, this is a massive buff because you only need to reach a certain skill level in order to make even mythic level gear. A lot of what I'm about to demonstrate in this video is going to be an example of how this works. Unlike in Dragonflight, you shouldn't need to rep up with multiple factions to learn certain recipes like profession tools. All of them are shuffled into a single quartermaster for the Artisans Consortium. Crafting is basically just going to be for the crafters. There's no telling if your crafters are going to need to leave the city, because supposedly a lot of the weekly progression is going to come in the form of fulfilling these crafting orders from NPCs, which brings me to the next point. These NPC crafting orders are going to be a pretty important thing, and it's going to provide the new kind of artisan metal resource and knowledge points and more. Crafters who take part in this have a path towards eventually reaching max level skill with their profession without other outside help. We're even told that if we're behind on knowledge points, these NPC crafting orders are going to help. They're going to help us catch up. And finally, the trees have been somewhat simplified to help prevent you from making grievous mistakes. I'm gonna demonstrate this a little bit more once we get to our example. But what I'm trying to do here is kind of illustrate what I think is the WoW team's vision of all the changes that we've seen so far, and then we're going to add in a little bit of guesswork and speculation, and then maybe teach you a little bit on how professions work these days. Alright, so for the rest of this video, I'm going to try my best and demonstrate just what it's going to be like as a solo player. What's it going to be like trying to get my blacksmithing up to a level where I can craft an epic piece of gear, whether, mostly for myself, because that's the most important person in the world of Warcraft, right? Ourselves. It's not a clean test that we're going to be doing here. The values here with recipe cost, those aren't finalized. I'm using debug settings, or I'm using PTR boosts. Like, I'm going to have like infinite numbers of specialization points. I have all rank 3, mostly rank 3 materials that I'll be using, and so I'm going to point that out as we go. But again, I want to do my best to try and demonstrate, as close to an approximation of what it's going to be like for a solo player to get ourselves up. So the first thing that I want to do is try to get my skill level up to 25. That's going to be what will get us to unlock specializations. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Now, you see that I just unlocked specializations right here, but I'm going to keep going a little bit, and you might have noticed what I'm doing here. A couple things that kind of simulates regular player behavior, like they may want to be interested in getting the first craft bonus, so that way they're able to get some of the extra, what is it called? Artisan's Acuity. That's going to be, it's basically the artisan metal of this expansion, but it behaves a little bit differently. It's mostly used for buying certain recipes, and it's going to be later be used to collect certain to purchase certain kinds of materials. We haven't seen exactly what that is yet, but well, we'll just have to wait and see. The other thing that I'm doing here, you might have seen that I put on a piece of profession equipment. That was one of the things that we ended up making for ourselves during this whole leveling and trying to get the extra knowledge points and what have you. So this I expect to be something that a normal player would want to do if they're, maybe following a website like wowprofessions.com. And then you can see here all the things that I'm making, they happen to be BOEs, which can hopefully be sold for people who are leveling, or if anything, the enchanting market might pick these up and shard these and try to sell that and try to sell these for some easy enchanting profits, which definitely was a thing in early Dragonflight, and I pretty much expect the same thing to happen here. So we're still going with this. I'm still going to keep going with these points because I want to try and get close to skill level 50. Again, that's kind of a normal player behavior to try to get to that point as quickly as possible. Obviously, I have more materials than what the average person would have, but this is, again, just trying my best to simulate what a person would try to do if they at least had some of these materials on them. That way, of course, I'll be able to get a higher base level skill that'll help me get a little bit closer to making cool stuff, such as an epic shield. Yay! Okay, so that takes care of most of these things, and now we're running into yellow recipes. These iron claw razor stones and weight stones, these are useful for increasing DPS, but also this particular one increases my finesse for profession tools. So these are things that they're still sellable, and I'll go ahead and make a couple of these until I'm at skill level 45. I'm basically trying to work my way up to like this skill level of 50 here, so I'll be right back. Alright, so I made it to 50, go me, so this will let me spec to something else, but for the most part, I shouldn't need to, or at least I hope I don't need to. But we're going to go ahead and start learning how to make shields right now. So we're going to select armor smithing right up top here, hit unlock specialization, hit the confirmation, and what we're going to do, I happen to have 31 points. I haven't used my unlimited skill book yet, so I have these 31 points to work with for the regular player who hopefully regular player, who at least tried to get as many of these first craft bonuses that they could, and it looks like I did get everything that I could there. So now we can start working on how to unlock, at least how to make this shield. So to do that, you can see here, just speccing into armor smithing, it allows me to spec out to this second tier of talents. And so we're going to go here to large plate armor, learn the specialization, and then we're going to apply 10 points. That way we can go into this third and final tier. I messed up there. Good going, Soul. So let's try again. Get 10 points, apply, and then we'll learn this sub-spec. And now, after applying changes, we now know how to learn how to make an Everforged Defender. Woo woo. And so here we are. I'm at skill level 50. I have one tool that gives me +8 to my skill, but there's no, it happens to be a multi-craft, whoop-de-doo. I have this other toolbox that doesn't add any skill, unfortunately, but hey, I got it, might as well put it on. I'm using a rank 2 piece of ore. We're going to cheat a little bit, and we're going to pick ourselves a rank 3 of this sanctified alloy, which is going to be very hard to make, I should point out. It's not going to be easy to make a rank 3 of these crafting materials these days. But I'll talk about that in probably another video. So now we have a rank 3 available here. We have a skill level of 269, and we are this far away from getting to a rank 4. Now my goal is to get to be able to make a rank 4 on my own, so that way I can use concentration to turn this shield into a rank 5. So how do we do it? We're going to do it through mostly specializations, because that's really our only other avenue, because as you can see, the only way for me to skill up at the moment is just by making the shield, which is going to be an impossible thing to do because this Spark of Omens is not something that we'll be able to have, all the time. We can only make at most, probably 1 every 2 weeks. So that's not going to be a realistic test. So we're going to stick to this right now with what we have right now. We're not going to try and spec into other stuff or try to learn other things. We're just crafting for ourselves. So we're left to mostly focus on specializations. So with our 21 points that we have available, I'm going to put it into this base point here, the topmost talent. That way, whatever skill levels I have here will apply to all of my other armor crafts. So let's go into it now. So there's that. I have 1 point left, and let's see, where am I at here? So, da-da-da. Okay, shields, 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 let's go. So now my skill was at 309. So I moved the needle a little bit. It's modest. It's not by much. But the idea, again, is I want to be able to make like a rank 5 for myself. Like, that would be really cool. Now, something I want to point out as well. This is a regular shield that would have a spark in here if I had a spark, but it also isn't like a heroic or a mythic level shield. And that's something that some people might want to be interested in too, because hey, some people want to at least group up and they want to get their crests and what have you, but they still want to just play professions on their own for the most part. And you can see here, this Enchanted Gilded Harbinger quest, this is the equivalent of an aspect crest that will make gear into a mythic level. Now, this only adds 20 points to the recipe difficulty. And if we wanted to, let's say, customize our stats, that would cost at most 5 points. That would increase the difficulty by 5. And if we wanted to add an embellishment, that would also add a maximum of 5 points to this recipe difficulty. So if you want to look at this 490 as how much it's going to cost to rank 5 this shield as it is, 520 is where we want to get to in order to rank 5 this shield as a mythic piece. I hope this all makes sense so far. I know it's going to be pretty easy to lose people. But let's get back to pumping points into these specializations, because we only have 30 points that's put in here. That's not very many. This is like what we started with from just leveling up. This doesn't count in much of anything. It doesn't count in whatever profession treasures that we've gotten that are scattered throughout the ground. That doesn't count any quests that we might have done. This is just me sitting here with what I've got and just, whatever materials that I happen to have. So let's go ahead and cheat. We're going to use our skill book, and we're going to try to be a little bit careful about how we're spending our points to make sure that this test stays fairly realistic. So it's not going to max everything out, but we're going to start pushing towards that and just try to put points into the most efficient thing that we can. So, like, for example, if I want to put 5 points in here, cool. This will give me a 5-point bonus, which means it's going to be a 10-point, 10-point boost to our skill. But maybe I might have a better, better luck putting points elsewhere. So, like, for example, if I put 5 points here, I'm going to get a plus 10 skill. So this actually means 5 equals 15. If you want to think of it like that. So let's put 5 points in here, get a nice little boost. You can see that the needle moves just a little bit. And so what we're trying to do here is just try to smartly put points where they're going to be put best. So you can see here, if I put 10 points into like this second node here, I'll get a plus 5 bonus, but I don't get anything there. But if I put 10 points here, I'll get a 5-point bonus there and a 5-point bonus there, and a bonus there. So let's go ahead and start putting stuff into shields. Ta-da! And once again, the needle starts to move a little bit more. So what we're trying to do is just be careful about how we're about our investments and make sure that they're like worth it. So if we're pushing shields, I'm going to put another 10, 5. Actually, I'm going to put 10 points in here. So there's 5, and then there's another 10. And now we're really close. We're very, very close to getting this, to getting to a rank 5 shield. So now it's kind of like, let's reassess. So we have about 25, 35, 45, we have 55 points that are put into our specialization so far. That's kind of a lot of time, right? We don't quite know exactly how long it's going to take to get those 55 points. I mean, we got 30 right away, and then I put in another 25 or so. But remember, we're at skill level 50. And we can start speccing into other things too. So I'm going to direct my attention to means of production. Because what this does here, if we just learn this specialization, we can learn how to make an artisan blacksmith's toolbox, which is, again, something that we can make for ourselves and something that will add more skill level to our abilities. And maybe we want to make cool tools and stuff that we can either make for ourselves or perhaps sell them. But again, let's stick to ourselves. We're going to go ahead and focus into this. And all we're going to do is unlock the specialization. That's it. Boom. That's all we did. I now know how to make a toolbox. And so we'll go ahead and make that. You can see here I need to be 75 in order to unlock the next specialization. But for now, let's go ahead and make this toolbox. We don't know how much the actual cost is going to be. My guess is going to cost a good chunk of this artisan's acuity right over here. But for now, without really knowing for sure, we're just going to go ahead and make this, regardless of the skill level, because the skill level and the potency of this blacksmithing accessory, it only affects the secondary stats. It doesn't affect the fact that I get plus 11 to my blacksmithing skill. That's a lot. That's pretty good. So this gives me a plus 19 bonus to what I'm already doing. And all I did really was, you know, just choose this specialization and make the toolbox from it. So now where are we at? Now, if we go up to our shield, ta-da, we are like right there. we are very, very, very close. It looks like it straight up says we need to reach 392 to guarantee quality 4. So let's try to find like let's just get like 1 point and put it somewhere. I get maybe it doesn't really matter too much where, but I think, you know, actually I shoot 5 points. You know, maybe I should have taken some of these points and I should have put it into here instead and maxed this out. So let's just put this 1 point in here for now. That's, you know, don't follow this pattern. This is considered probably a mistake. But now you can see that we are at a rank 4. So what I can do now is use concentration, just like that. And now it's going to use this resource right here. Concentration is going to use almost 200 points of it, but it'll let me create this shield at a rank 5, which is pretty sweet. And that didn't really involve a whole lot. If anything, we can walk this back a little bit and say maybe I didn't need to spec for means of production or make this toolbox. Maybe if I just put my points in a little bit more smartly, you know, and I just put it in here instead so I can get this nice beefy plus 15 to skill, that could have been it. Because this gave me an 11, you know, and I'm bad at math, but generally that's something that definitely would have been possible without having to spec into a tree that maybe I'm not all that interested in. So that's pretty sweet. Now, the other thing to consider too is what if we did want to make the mythic version of this shield? Again, this recipe difficulty would need to add about 30 points to it. But if I recall, the skill level that was needed to rank 4 this shield was about 390 or so. So if I just get maybe, oh, I don't know, after the points that I put into everything and the tools that I have, if I just put in like, you know, a couple more points, maybe like 9 more points, then I'll be able to make this shield into a mythic version as well. So let's go ahead and put points into this particular thing here. So that's going to give me a bonus of 10 points. And so this is kind of a guesstimate here. You'll have to bear with me. But it looks like if I did want to rank 5 a mythic version, you know, just with the embellishments and all that other good stuff, if I wanted to do that, I can do it just like with a build like this. If I had my points allocated approximately like this, and if I happen to have, you know, these sorts of tools, I can now make this mythic shield. And I didn't need crafting orders. I didn't need to spend oodles and oodles of gold trying to, you know, get myself points in places that I don't need to be. I'm only at skill level 51. You know, I'm not that far into it. There's 50 more points to go. So when the time comes and I want, you know, the end game of crafting here is going to be to eventually be able to make a fully maxed out, juiced up shield with no concentration spent at all. And that's going to be something that career-minded crafters are going to be caring about, because the less concentration that they have to spend, the more that they'll be able to craft high-level items. But for you, potentially, the person who's just making things for themselves and really could care less about interacting with other players, this is fantastic, because you can reach this point far, far sooner than anyone else, because you're just making it for yourself. Like, I know that I'm going to have to like spec into like everything, you know, put points into all these things here. I'm going to have to max out my tools just so I can make like the best kinds of tools. I'm going to have to make sure my ever burning forge, you know, thing, this needs to be maxed out too, because as I'm making stuff, I am going to be spending ingenuity, and it's going to be it's a crazy process. But for the solo person, this is the point that I'm trying to make. For the solo person who's just making stuff for themselves, it's not. It's quite accessible, and so I'm I'm fairly impressed with what's going on here, even though these changes might not seem to be so dramatic and crazy. I mean, there are going to be crazy things that happen, notably when we start looking at crafting orders. Sorry, let me try to open that back up again. When we go into crafting orders, at some point, this is going to be populated with people, with fake people asking for stuff. Now, hopefully, we're spec'd for it, and it'll be something that'll give us like skill points or knowledge points or the acuity currency or reputation or whatever. But there are small changes happening that are going to have like some pretty big impacts, I think. The last thing that I feel like is left is to just help educate folks, because I'm sure that some of the explanations that I was given about points and adding this and that, I'm sure that sailed over a couple of heads, more than a couple. And so I'm going to be spending as much time as I can making more videos, trying to help educate folks and to, you know, answer questions, big concerns that people have about certain things with professions, so that way they can feel more comfortable doing them and giving them a shot. Because I totally drank the Kool-Aid. Like, I totally believe in how the system works. But of course, here's me in the beta. I'm figuring this out. I'm making mistakes, but I'm trying to share all that knowledge with you. So please feel free to ask questions about anything here. I know I only used blacksmithing as an example because it's kind of the cleanest and most complete profession that I could really demonstrate for the sake of this video. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions, your thoughts. You know, hey, lay them down. Please like the video, subscribe for more stuff, and I'll see you guys for the next thing. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.